So the next box that we get is the pipes and so forth. So I'll talk you through exactly what you get with this. So the first thing I've grabbed is the outlets. So what these do, so this is a typical hose connection, and this is going to have an in and an out. It'll say out on it, and so the out goes into the out on the top of the canister, and then it's also got a tap in it like that, so shut or open. So when you put it in on the shut position, then you can open the tap right up when you want it to be on. So it'll only go in one way. So if you've got the tap in the wrong position, you have to place it in the right position and then slide it. And then the other thing to be aware of too is there are O-rings here. So over a period of years, having spare O-rings is really a good idea. And also making sure those O-rings are nice and clear. If there's hair or junk on the O-ring, it may not get a good seal. So we want to just pop that on there like that. So even just like a bit of fluff, try and get rid of that. And then these are also multi-directional, which is really, really convenient. The next thing I grab by reaching into this lovely box is, so we've got our hoses. Now it's better to trim the hoses to about the length that you need. So we don't want extra drag if we don't need to. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to put our inlet and outlet onto the filter. So once that goes all the way on, we're then going to do up the hose clamp so it's nice and finger tight. It also, you'll get it on easier if you just lubricate it a little bit, even just a bit of moisture on it. It'll allow you to slide this on better. And once again, the quality of all the plastics on these units are very good. After dealing with some of the cheaper units, any pressure you put on the filters, they often crack, and then the spare parts are often not available. So one of the advantages of Aquarel is it is better quality gear. It's a lot less likely to break, and then I've found spare parts to be not a problem. So now we've got the inlet and outlet. We're then going to position this down under the aquarium where we want it to be. Typically it will run in your cabinet. You can sit next to your aquarium. It doesn't really matter as long as it's below the water level of the aquarium. Now the next thing we get is a big bag of goodies. So I'll talk you through what's in here and what you get. The first thing you need to reach for is the inlet and outlet. So basically one of these go on the inlet, which means from the aquarium into the filter. So let's choose that one. And then the outlet, we put the opposite direction, which I'll show you why in a second. So let's go into the filter. We're just going to grab this hose, then we're going to put this on here. So wiggle that on so you're nice and confident with the join. In. Okay, that's good, do it on this side. So the in is the long piece, then the out, we're going to have the short piece going into the tank. So this now, it's going out from the filter, out back into the tank. Give it a little suck. So we now have our inlet, which is the one that goes into the aquarium, from the aquarium to the filter. Then we have the outlet, which is going from the filter back into the aquarium again. Now the next thing we're going to find in our little bag of goodies, we're going to find the inlet strainer. So this one goes on the in, and then we can use however many numbers of these tubes to go into the aquarium. For the inlet, you need to make sure that you use the ones without the holes in them. Otherwise you may later have issues priming the filter, because the ones with holes means that you may have trouble getting the filter to start. So it's better to use the ones without holes. Now, this has got to go into the aquarium, and it's got to go down below your water change mark. But you actually don't want this right down the bottom of the filter, because people think, oh, you got to go right down the bottom to actually get the waste out of the water. But it doesn't really work like that. The waste doesn't really, it's not all about the physical waste. What it's about is the gases that are in the water. So I actually prefer to pick up from higher up, and a lot of your very effective saltwater filters, they all pick up off the surface because your gases are all going to rise. So you want to make sure that you put enough of these extensions onto the filter to make sure that it's going under your water change mark, but don't worry about whether it goes right to the bottom. Then we're going to put in our little joiner, like that, and that's going to allow us to connect onto our strainer, our inlet. So here's your strainer done. That then pushes into this, and once again you can just change the height as far as how many of these you put in. And I don't want you to go down too much more than your water change line, because a lot of your gases will pick up better from higher up. And the physical waste that goes into the gravel is really why we want to use a gravel cleaner. So the gravel cleaner is the main thing we get to suck all the crap out of the actual base of the aquarium. So the next thing we're going to find in this bag is a whole bunch of these things. Now these are basically to make a spray bar. A spray bar is a relatively effective way of distributing the flow and giving you oxygen in the aquarium. But I prefer not to use spray bars because it's something else that I've got to look at. Certainly there are applications for the spray bar to look good. Now when you find the one with the bottom on it, then that's the one you put on the end of your spray bar. So you'll notice that most of them hollow. One of them's got an end cap on it. So you can put these together and make yourself a spray bar. Typically I don't use this. What I tend to use is on my outlet, I will usually put this. And I love this because this goes in and kicks the water up, and there's not really any impeding of the flow. If you use a spray bar, there's a lot more back pressure on the filter, so therefore the filter is going to be higher pressured, and there's going to be less actual water coming out, but the intensity of the water will be more. That's not how I run my filters. It's definitely one way of doing it. What I actually do is just get the little duckbill, and that's going to spray up. Then I'll just connect that to the little elbow. Then I'll just connect that to a extension pipe if I want to, but I usually don't have an extension pipe. It will depend on my aquarium. I'll usually just use my little converter here that allows it to go straight onto this, because I actually want this to return at the surface of the water. So in a perfect world, that would hang over the back of my tank. Then I can direct that any way I want, and then I'd want my water level about there to agitate. So I want this just under the water and going up. So I want to see that rooster tail. That's going to help allow me to see that the filter's running properly. Because if you can't see the outlet of your filter and you can't see it pumping the air, the water, then it's very easy for your filter to not work and you not even notice that it's not working. So make sure whatever your filter does is quite dramatic, that you can clearly see if it's on or off. So in a perfect world, I'd be having that over the side of my tank. I'd want my water level about there. If my water level was lower, then by all means I can add an extension pipe in there. But once again, I want it below the water, not above the water, because that can help with my priming as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the inlet onto the aquarium, and then I'm going to put the outlet on the aquarium. Now, where should you put these? You can have one at each end of the aquarium if you want to, but a lot of the time it's neater and more convenient to just have them in one section, because that way you can sort of very neatly put them up into one corner of the tank. And if you're going to aim that, for example, down the aquarium, then ultimately this is the last point of contact, because you want to put this, say, in the corner of the tank. That's the bit that's in the water. Maybe you're going to put your heater next to that, and then you can easily conceal it if it's all in one area. That's how I like to do it. So this will just be in the corner of the tank. Now the next thing we need to do, so we've got suction caps as well. So we've got a bit of lubricant, which might help you put the top on if you were having any trouble with that. And then we've also got these suction caps. Now the suction caps are mainly used for the spray bar, if you're going to use that, but also you might want to use the suction caps. So you just get the suction cap, place it into the clip, turn it, and then that'll sit nicely. And you might want to use that to to connect onto your inlet to make sure that that's neatly in position. So when you get this bag, you're getting 4 suction caps with it. So you get a couple of those elbows, one of which I've used. So that's what you get in here. Then once you're ready to turn the aquarium on, what you're going to do is put these both into the aquarium, and then you're going to want to make sure that the water level is, both of these are under the water. So you want your inlet and outlet under the water when you're priming it. Now at the top of these Aqua L filters, you'll find the priming thing. So once we've set the filter up and it's underneath the aquarium, what we want to do is pull this out. So when you go to do this, you want to make sure that your taps are open. Otherwise the pressure within the canister will stop the priming from being possible. So when you go to use your primer to start the filter, which gets the air out of the filter, the first time that you do this, I find it's very difficult to pull up. So really get both hands in there and pull it up the first time. After the first time, it's pretty easy. So what we're going to do is position the filter underneath the aquarium. We're going to make sure our taps are on. Then what we can do is start pumping on this primer. And you pump this primer a bunch of times. That'll build up pressure in the line, and it will suck the water out of the aquarium and bleed the air out. So once the water's coming over, then it's primed, and then you wait for the bubbles to completely stop before you turn the filter on, because it's really important, particularly that the inlet line and the filter is full of water before you go turning it on, because it needs to be run with water and you can't have an airlock in the top. So if your filter doesn't start pumping, then repeat the priming process again. So once again, to do the priming process, to recap on that, we're going to have our inlet and outlet under the water. We're going to have our taps open. We're going to pump on the primer until we hear a sound like ksh. Then we see the water coming down, and bubbles will all be bubbling out. Once the primer has worked, you'll know about it, because you'll hear the rushing water sound and you'll see the bubbles coming out. Once that's stopped, you then can turn the filter on. And it's really not a bad idea when you turn the filter on to just rock it gently, because that helps to remove any air bubbles out. And when the filter first turns on, it'll often make sounds like that, and that's it just expelling the air. And you also want to make sure that wherever you're putting your inlet is nowhere near your air stone, because otherwise your air pump can be blowing air bubbles into the filter, and then that can actually create a airlock in the filter, and then the airlock in the filter can cause the filter to potentially stop running. Now, as part of your regular maintenance, it's really a good idea to clean your pipes. Now, the way you clean your pipes is just get a hose brush like this. This is a perfect flexible one, and then you basically just go down and give it a good clean. This is not something that needs to be done regularly. Even once a year is usually ample, but over time the filter will run more effectively if the actual pipes are clean. So that's just another thing to be aware of. So basically, in summary, the water is going to come from the aquarium down the inlet. We don't want the inlet near air stones. We want to make sure that the inlet stays clean. So whenever you see waste or leaves or whatever building up on this, you want to be able to just take that off and give it a quick clean. Then the water's going to come down through there. Then it's going to go through the pre-filter. Once again, every time you clean your filter, don't forget about this pre-filter that's in the top here. Don't forget that having a spare pre-filter allows you to do the change quicker. So then the water's going to go to the bottom of this canister. Then over time, good bacteria is going to establish in here. The good bacteria is going to be breaking the waste down. Then it's going to go and get returned back to the aquarium again. Because this top pre-filter of these AquaL units are so easy to clean, I would recommend cleaning these more often than you need to clean the filter itself. And the more often you do clean the pre-filter, the less often you'll find that you have to actually clean the filter itself. So to actually clean this one, all we need to do is open up the large clips. Then that will pop open. We want to keep the small clips engaged. Obviously we've turned our filter off first. Then we can just pull this out and clean it. And we want to check that the non-return valve here is functional. Then we put that back in again after it's been cleaned, or in other cases just replaced. Then we check the O-ring is in the top there. We pop that back on. We then can proceed to put the filter back together again. If the pre-filter is cleaned more often, the whole canister needs to be cleaned less often. Then the water is going to go return back into the aquarium again, and once again, agitating the surface is the absolute most important thing, because the process that these filters work with is essentially what's called oxidization. So we want to make sure there's as much oxygen in the water as possible. So to go along with this, either something like a power head, let's say at the other end of the aquarium, and agitating the surface is really what I want to work with this. I'd never want to have a situation with just this, because also there's no redundancy. If this was to fail, then your fish die. If we've got an extra power head or air pump, then you're going to have a lot more time in case one thing fails. So redundancy is everything, and making sure that you can easily see when the filter is on or off. So then you can address and fix any problems. So having an extra air pump or air pump or power head to agitate the surface is absolutely crucial. If your aquarium has got green water, the water is a little bit green, then you may want to consider getting a UV sterilizer. And you can put a UV sterilizer in line with the outlet of these filters, and that allows the water from the filter to go past a UVC light, and that will help to kill any algae spores that are in the water. Typically, green water is much more of a problem associated with excess light. So if you've got direct sunlight on the tank, or if your lights are on too much, then that's a reason why you might want to add a UV sterilizer. And the larger the UV sterilizer unit, the more effective it's going to be. And that can just be attached onto the outlet of this filter and help to make sure that you end up with nice crystal clear water. Now the quality of your fish is going to be absolutely the result of your water quality and your nutrients. So in regards to your filter, the quality of food you feed will make a massive impact on how clean your aquarium stays. If you use low quality foods, you'll find the fish extract less nutrient from the food, therefore you're going to get more waste, therefore your filter is going to be dirtier. So a higher quality food, if fed correctly, you use a lot less food, therefore you're going to have a lot less waste, and therefore your filter will stay cleaner. Now if you feed the super high quality foods like Danichi for example, and you overfeed it, then you will find the filter will be in a terrible shape. If you feed it correctly, And when I mean feed it correctly, I mean so over a period of months you're looking at the bellies of your fish and they're not fat and they're not thin, then you'll find the high quality foods make your filter way cleaner. Overfeeding high quality foods does not make your filter way cleaner. Feeding them correctly, so the right amount of waste is coming out, is what makes the filter stay cleaner. And something that I would absolutely recommend that you check out is Spectrum's probiotics. So New Life Spectrum have a food called probiotics, and the probiotics have got a bacteria in it that mean that when the fish poo, the bacteria in the poo eats the poo. So I'm involved in servicing a lot of aquariums, doctors, dentists, waiting rooms and so forth. And when I take over a new job, what I'll do is feed 20% Danichi, because I really love the magic colors and results that Danichi gives. And then I'll feed 80% Spectrum probiotics. And then I'll find after about a month, I'll find the tank is definitely cleaner. When I gravel clean the gravel, I'll notice it cleaner. I'll see the buckets cleaner. When I clean the filter, I will notice it's cleaner. After 2 months, I actually get amazing results. I find that whereas I've gravel cleaned the tank and it normally comes out putridly black, and I open the filter, it's putridly black. But when I change to this food, I find after a couple of months, the filter is significantly cleaner, even to the point where you can clean it less. So quality of food and quality of equipment is absolutely everything. So what I'd be looking at doing on a regular basis, particularly if you're new to the hobby, is getting a sample of water from your tank and take it down to your local aquarium store so they can give you any advice on what your water might need. But you also need to make sure you grab your phone and make a little video of your aquarium running. You want to see the filter outlet, you want to see everything. Open up the cupboards so we can see what chemicals and stuff you've got. So you want to show the video and you want to get a water sample, and then from there a good aquarium expert can guide you to make sure that you have the right fish and that those fish are in the right environment with the right equipment. So if you are new to the hobby, it's really great getting online, watching as many YouTubes and tutorials and so forth as you can, but it's really good to have a local aquarium expert that you can go and visit, someone that actually cares, someone that you can clearly see wants your aquarium to succeed. And in order to give them the information to ensure you've got a great tank, make sure that when you go to see them, you're bringing a little video of your tank running and you're bringing a sample of water. Now, what should the people be testing for you? Definitely pH and KH and GH. I'd be wanting to get them tested on a fairly regular basis. The GH, KH and pH will differ between different fish, but then I would definitely want to get them to test ammonia and nitrite, particularly if it's a new tank or if you've been getting new fish, because the filter is what's going to break the ammonia into the nitrite and then into the nitrate. So then I would also want to get my nitrate tested on a semi-regular basis. And the nitrate's going to govern what sort of filter material you might want to put in the filter, but also it's going to govern how often you do your water changes. And then depending on the aquarium, you might also want to be looking at phosphate, depending on what tank you've actually got. So these filters are really a very good choice. The other thing is the versatility of these filters is you've got the nice big trays, very easy to remove, very easy to clean, and then you can put different media in the filter. You can put the poly filter, you can put marine pure. If the water's a bit discolored, you might want to even try something like activated carbon. So you've got any of those options or resins that can go into these particular units. So with the information that we've given you in this video, you should be very competent to set up and run one of these filters. Once again, the bigger the filter you get, the better off you are in the long run. And how often you need to clean the filter is going to be governed by the size of the filter versus the size of the tank, the amount of fish you've got, and very much the food that you're putting in. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the product, and if you've got any questions, make sure that you take a sample of water and video down to your local aquarium expert to help you out. There's various options for media to put into this pre-filter, and what media you would go for would be governed by how often you're prepared to clean this pre-filter. Because this pre-filter is very advantageous unless you forget about it. And it's not uncommon that if you've forgotten about it, to this clog up, and then the filter will not run efficiently, even though the rest of the filter is cleaned. So every time you open it up, you want to give that a good clean, and it's better to clean that more often than you actually have to clean the filter itself. So if you were going to be forgetful, or you know that you're not going to look after your tank properly, you want coarse media in here. Ultimately, you could put marine pure in here. That would be a way of not clogging up. So that way, if you did forget about this, it wouldn't really matter. But if you want to utilize this more effectively, then cleaning it more often is the key. So the coarse filter sponge is what comes with it, and it's probably a very safe option. Otherwise, other options is you could get a much finer filter material to put into that section. Now, the advantage of this would be you pull out fine particles at the start. The disadvantage of this would be if you don't clean it often, it'll clog up quicker. The other option you've got is polyfilter. Now, the reason why I like polyfilter the best is that polyfilter actually clings the particles, doesn't just trap them. So the polyfilter can be ridiculously dirty, but the water can still pass through it properly. So a couple of layers of this in here would be my first preference, because it will remove even the fine particles and it will not clog up so quickly. That is one of the absolute beautiful things of polyfilter. And when I say polyfilter, I mean the real polyfilter, the trademark polyfilter, not just any product calling itself polyfilter. Now, a good little tip for not spilling, besides making sure that you do have a drip tray underneath it to collect any little spills, but what you want to do is consider shutting the inlet tap off, letting the outlet tap run for like 10 seconds, then unplug your filter. Because what that will do is that will sort of depressurize the filter a little bit. So we turn that one off, we leave that running for 10 seconds, we then unplug it, we then shut off both the taps before we go to clean the filter, and you'll find that a little bit less dribble will come out, because a little bit of extra water will have been shot out of the filter while it was still running and the inlet is off. Once your filter is very well established and you're confident using this filter, your aquarium should run very beautifully, and hopefully you'll be as happy as that guy.